today we're going to be talking about the situation in Kenya. Also, we're going to be talking about this couple in West Virginia who enslaved these black children and had them in horrendous situation. And then finally, we are going to talk about our reflections on this week's presidential debate. So starting out with the white couple, the Kenyan issue. Caleb, you are our go-to person about issues in Africa. Can you go ahead and get us going on this?
Sure. So let's see. Basically, the Kenyan parliament and the president tried to pass a tax bill, and it was going to raise taxes on a lot of average goods, diapers, milk, bread in Kenya. And Kenya's already just struck by inflation, like most of the world. So they're dealing with crippling inflation. And so the people came out and rejected that wholesale. They actually came out and made it into parliament and burned part of parliament down. So, they were not playing. And so they ended up getting the president to back down from that. It's not a time in Africa to be an unpopular president, as you know. So he quickly backed down from that. But that's kind of the basics of the situation. But, we got to do a deeper dive into that because it was so much more than just an economic bill. And so there was some context around that. Kenya, recently, the president of Kenya, Ruto, recently paid a state visit to the United States, which, a state visit, the United States granting a state visit is a great honor. And so they granted the state visit to Ruto, president of Kenya, and during the state visit, they actually designated Kenya an ally, what they call, I guess, it's a strategic ally, which is the highest ranking a country can get just below NATO membership. So there's a lot of questions surrounding that designation.
So let me ask you a question about that, because I know that Kenya sent some of their armed forces to Haiti to control the gangs down there. So the United States having invited this Kenya representative to the United States, it seems to me that there's more to it than, especially with the Kenyan forces in Africa. In Haiti.
Absolutely, and you touch it with a needle, and so it's all intertwined. And so you have the state visit, you have the Kenyan deployment of these troops. Basically, this designation of strategic ally. So here, the question is, what a lot of Kenyans are asking is, what exactly does Kenya get out of that? You know what I'm saying? Because right now, what it appears to be is that Ruto is allowing the United States to put a black face on white supremacy. You know what I mean? And so using Kenyan troops to do things that white American troops or European troops can't do. You know what I mean? And so what's next? You know what I'm saying? Are Kenyan troops going to go to Ukraine? Are Kenyan troops, you know what I mean? So here, in the situation where you have the countries in West Africa that are kicking out Americans and French military, you have Kenyans inviting them in.
So let me ask you a question. What is the main resource that Kenya has?
So,
okay, and while you think about that,
right.
The reason why I'm asking is why would they have the need for these increased taxes if you think of Africa as a continent is so rich in all kind of things?
Resources.
Why would they even need to do this?
Well, here's the deal. With Kenya, the increased taxes is basically to pay back Kenyan debt. So, which is another. Kenya's greatest debtor is China. Second, the World Bank and IMF. And so you could substitute the word United States for World Bank and IMF. So basically, he leaves, he goes home. They're trying to pass this bill so they can pay back the United States. And so the thing about Kenya is that it's in East Africa. It is very close to the Red Sea. It also borders the Indian Ocean. Okay. So if you make Kenya a strategic ally and you are able to base aircraft in Kenya, that now puts all of Africa into reach of American land-based air power. That puts China has a base in East Africa in Djibouti. that puts China's naval base within striking range of American air power. That puts pretty much everything. So if you look at American land-based air power and you couple that with basically aerial refueling capabilities, everything in basically around the Indian Ocean, Africa, and the Middle East is within striking distance of American land-based air power. So so you have to view it from that.
In it.
You have to view it from that context. There's a larger context. You know what I mean? So what does Kenya get out of being an American, basically an American aircraft carrier sitting in East Africa? You know what I mean? And so it makes Kenya a target.
I would caution Kenya that look at what's happened with the other countries that America has gotten involved with. They have propped up a leader, they've propped up the country, and either once America has gotten what they wanted out of it, or when that leader or whatever is no longer popular, that leader is toppled and taken out and whatever, it does not end good.
Being afraid of America, but no, but also just it's a couple of more aspects to that too, though. It makes Kenya a target, where all of those terrorist groups that operate in Africa that have a hard time striking America, they can strike Kenya. So it makes Kenya and the Kenyan people, puts them at risk. The other thing, which I mentioned earlier, is that Kenya's largest lender is China. But now that Ruto has placed Kenya wholeheartedly into the American camp by becoming a strategic ally, that closes the door on Chinese loans, Chinese developments. It closes the door on BRICS membership. And so when you close the door on becoming a member of BRICS, that locks you out of the loans from what they call the New Development Bank. It locks you out of those countries, you know, as South Africa, Saudi Arabia recently became a member of BRICS. I mean, right now, BRICS controls about 40% of the world's oil. Saudi Arabia, Russia, a few others. And so it locks them out of cheap oil. It locks them out of development, out of loan. With BRICS, you can trade within your own currency. You don't have to trade using American currency. So there's a lot of things that occurred when this president did that. So you have to view a lot of this, the protests, a lot of things that are going on in Kenya, you have to view it from that standpoint. It's a much wider issue.
So is the United States trying to destabilize Kenya in doing this?
Well, I mean, basically, I want
as a punishment for helping Haiti.
No, because they wanted them. Again, Kenya is helping them put a black face on white imperialism. So Kenya is America is all in. Now they have a place to move their drone. Remember, they got kicked out of West Africa, so now they have a new place that they perhaps can take Africa Command, because Africa Command is based in Germany. They don't have a place to put Africa Command in Africa. So now this opens the door that now you have African Command in Kenya. You have military bases, you have naval bases, you have all kinds of stuff that opens the door for these things to be moved in Kenya, and it makes Kenya and the Kenyan people a target. And it closes the door on Kenya's development economically because it locks them out of BRICS.
Does the continent of Africa have any type of coalition between all the countries that come together or anything like that?
No, they have the African Union, which is laughable, which does nothing. And so the African Union is a place, what they call the Organization of African States. I am 100% against the African Union, Organization of African States, and I'll just a quick reason why. Because these institutions cemented in place the division of the African continent. Because now it says, okay, so now you're a country, 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 and you're going to stay a country. It cemented that division in place. So after colonialism, those countries never were able to merge again because it cemented in place their division.
As we probably wrap this up, the reason why I asked the question is because it seems to be very dangerous that the continent of Africa is letting China in, letting the United States in, they're letting Russia in, they're letting all of these, what we would term as first world countries involved, and all I see is that's going to lead to destruction in Africa.
More exploitation. It's a lot more exploitation. But again, it's the question with Kenya is, okay, so you have the former you know for a fact what the Western imperialist structure is about. They're all about exploitation. They're all about destabilization. Whereas the new emerging global power structure with China and India and some of the other countries and within BRICS, it's kind of a restructuring in the world. And so why would you choose Western white imperialism when the non-Western, non-white countries are getting together, taking control of their own economies, their own destinies? Why would you not choose? Why would you choose the past instead of choosing the future?
If I wanted to choose a plot, I could say that the future of war, you never want to fight it on your land, okay? Right. And if you can choose Africa to fight China, or if you could choose Africa to fight Russia or any of these other countries, so be it. That's where you would want to do it. So the destruction of Africa, I see becoming very likely, and I hope that's not the case.
Right. No, again, and a lot of people, just to, I know this is off topic, but just to touch on this, just briefly. So people will say China, 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 China. But everything that when you walk into a store, everything you look at has a China label on it. You walk into Walmart, 99.9% of the goods are made in China. The Chinese economy and the American economy are so intertwined, they will never go to war. That's the truth. They'll never go to war because their economies are one. You know what I mean? So all that is just fear mongering. You can't make your buddies in the defense industry rich without a big bad enemy. You know what I mean? So China is the big bad enemy.
Let me just tell the viewers that this is Caleb Alexander. Okay, this is the guy with Fletcher on his shirt. Go ahead, put the camera on it so they can see that Fletcher on his shirt. So he's talking about international diplomacy and how all of that. So not only is he talking about it, he's learning about it as well. And
we're proud of him.
I was just getting ready to say I'm proud of what you're doing.
So let's move on to our next hot topic. The white couple in West Virginia who enslaved these black kids and made them slaves. I was talking to either Chris, bro, I think I was talking to you earlier this week, that this is a situation to where these these white couples adopting black kids and then turning them into slaves and getting them involved in human trafficking is not an unusual situation. Now, I was listening to some news about this situation earlier, and this family, this couple, moved them and those kids from Washington State because they were under investigation there into West Virginia, into one of these nondescript areas. And interesting enough is that the law enforcement in West Virginia knew about what they were doing about these kids, but when they would go visit, do a search, that they saw the kids eating, so they were okay. But my concern has always been at the quickness that white couples can adopt these black kids, and how much background checking is being done about these families, these couples, because our kids are always caught in situations to where they shouldn't be caught in those situations. And so now you got these kids who got sores on their body. They said human trafficking. I can only imagine what was going on there. But this is just one case, but it's one case in many. So what are your thoughts about it?
My thought is that, first of all, this should be a wake-up call to every state in America to be able to look at, number one, not only what they do or how they handle foster children, but also how they deal with adoption. Okay, you cannot look at this when you go to be able to investigate a family, whether they want to be a foster parent or whether or not they want to adopt. You need to look at those families and make sure that on subsequent visits that the kids are in school, that they're eating properly, and all of these type of things are happening. And probably there needs to be a time where the kids are taken away from those adoptive parents or the foster parents, not to take them away from them, but to have them away from those parents so that you can ask them questions or whatever, and they can speak freely on their own. I've been to West Virginia. West Virginia, the majority of it, except for the far eastern part of West Virginia, is very, very rural. It's very kind of difficult to. I mean, it's very hilly. It all looks like that, and it's. I just think people need to look a little bit harder, and I hope this is a wake-up call.
Yeah, I've always said that in terms, I'm going to go see the movie about Possum Tate, Texas, where Sound of Hope next week, about this black church, and the congregation went in and adopted these black foster kids. And I've always have questioned, why aren't we adopting our own? Because again, it seems to be that white couples can adopt black kids quickly, but why aren't we adopting our own? Are there barriers in the adoption system, in the foster system, to where we can't adopt our own children? What's going on? And why do we keep hearing about these situations periodically, to where, it makes you wonder, we got a lot of missing black kids. Where are these kids? Where are these babies? What's going on? So,
I'll tell you what, Doc. But just to rewind a little bit, my initial thoughts, right? So when I heard about the story and I read about the story, my initial thoughts, honestly, I said I hope that they both get beat to death in prison. Both those parents. That was my initial thought. That's how angry I was. I was pissed. I think the system failed these kids. The state of Washington failed these kids. The state of West Virginia failed these kids. The neighbors failed these kids. The education system failed these kids. I know some states where you have homeschooling, they don't even check on the kids. There are no rules and regulations about homeschooling. So I think that system needs to be revisited. And so there definitely, and to Chris's point, there needs to be, until these kids turn 18, there needs to be at least an annual or biannual wellness check, where these kids are interviewed away from the adoptive parents, and that way you can get a truer sense of the situation. But yeah, the entire system, where were the neighbors? These kids were out there working in the field like slaves. Working in ragtag.
The neighbors complained, and nothing was ever done.
And that's the other thing, is that this notion that if I'm white, nothing would ever happen to me. And this couple might have seen evidence of this, to where these police officers came out to the house, nothing was done.
I mean, every time, I'm not saying visited, every time I pass through West Virginia.
So you've been to West Virginia?
I passed through West Virginia.
You know what I'm talking about.
It's never been a destination.
Right. You know what I'm talking
about. Not since I was a child. So my grandfather had a sister who lived in West Virginia. So we visited as a child. But as an adult, no, it's never been a destination. But every time I pass through West Virginia, I've had the displeasure of having to stay at a hotel in West Virginia.
They got hotels?
Yeah. So, and I tell you what.
Forgive me, audience.
No, but when every time I see more Confederate flags than American flags. I remember waking up one time, and when we travel, we travel. So we're not defenseless when we travel. So I woke up and walked out of the motel room, and it was trucks with Confederate flags all mounted on the back.
They knew you were in town.
I don't know, but I'm like, this is West Virginia. This is the culture of West Virginia, and there's probably a reason why they chose West Virginia from Washington. You know what I mean? And so it's still this culture. And I mean, how much of the sheriffs and law enforcement is just not caring?
Yeah, I believe it's just not caring. And then finally, maybe that one complaint forced them to, okay, this is the third time we've been out here. But by that point in time, these babies are scarred.
Yeah, they're living locked in a shed. They're using porta potties. There's no water. There's no electricity.
Not even the dignity of a porta potty.
Yeah, they didn't have a porta potty.
I thought they had like a camper, some kind of like camper porta potty.
They had like Ken.
Oh my God!
They were sleeping on hard floor.
Yeah, bare concrete. Those kids are gonna be traumatized for the rest of their life.
Right.
And so,
how did I get into this?
Yeah, it's horrendous. So yeah, the system that allowed this adoption to take place, come on. I mean, there had to have been some kind of investigation, a deeper dive into an investigation, subsequent visits. I mean, there had to be all kinds of stuff. The system completely failed these people. And then to Doc's point about, again, is the system set up against black adoption of black children? Is it something that's economic? Again, because you have to revisit that. Is it structural? You know what I mean? Is it something where we don't qualify economically? We've been making a way. Black folks have been raising black babies and cranking them out, and they turn out just fine. Other than that, Howard wouldn't have had the largest admissions or largest enrollment in their history. Black folks have been doing fine. You know what I mean? We've been making more, like I earlier said, taking a little and turning into a lot. You know what I'm saying? And so we've been doing that. That's our nature. So the idea that we aren't able to take black babies and give them a loving home and make them come out to be productive citizens. So again, that does need to be revisited and investigated. Why is there this massive disparity? It's easier for white families to adopt than black families to adopt.
Okay. All right. Our last discussion, we want to give our reflections on the first presidential debate that was on last Thursday night between the current president, Joseph Biden, and the former president, Trump. So I'm just going to start out. First of all, it was a painful debate. Joe was able to recover periodically and really throw out some good punches there. But the statement of the night for me was when Trump said that the immigrants were coming in and taking the black jobs. And that triggered me. That literally triggered me because I'm trying to figure out what are you talking about, black jobs?
What is the black job?
So there must be two boxes. We've got the black jobs in these boxes and the non-black jobs in these boxes.
They taking the black jobs.
And so that was probably the most, Trump has said some racist things in his career.
Mm-hmm.
But this one was on a whole new level because, first of all, not only did he said it nationally and globally, people were watching this race, this debate. Black jobs. So a lot of doctoral mentees seek me out to help them with their dissertation. And I've gotten a lot crossed over and to become Dr. So-and-so. I guess that's a black job. I guess me starting a foundation with the hope of being able to hire people, that's a black job. Why don't we talk about the white jobs? What are the white jobs? But it's racist, and I'm just going to say it. Anybody black who continues to support this man, for even thinking about voting for him, give me a break, because the way I look at it, if he's going to take away black jobs, he needs to take away first from his black MAGA supporters. That's what I'm thinking. Just take their black jobs first. Leave me alone.
Couple of things. When you talk about Trump support, right? 4th of July is coming up. I'm going to tie this in.
Mm-hmm.
5,000 black folks fought with the Americans.
Mm-hmm.
20,000 fought with the British.
Mm-hmm.
The British said, if you fight with us, you have your freedom. So even though the British promised freedom to those black folks that fought, 20,000 of them say, oh yeah, we're not stupid. You still had 5,000 of them
that stayed there.
that fought. Oh yeah,
Right.
that fought. So that's those are Trump supporters right there. Those 5,000 that still fought against their own interests and against their own freedom, those are Trump supporters right there. So happy 4th of July, folks.
and then the other thing that got me was
Pretty good, Galen.
Trump lies lower than than a Persian rug. He was just lying all over the place, still denying. But the other thing that's not a non-black observation that everybody should have looked at was he has already sound the dog whistle that if he does not win this race, he's going to contest it. And I would be very, very scared, if you will, as to what that would look like, especially now that the Supreme Court has made some decisions that really are benefiting those insurrectionists we had on January 6th. So I was taken aback with the black jobs, taken aback with the threat that he said he wants a fair election, but if he doesn't win, that means it's going to be another insurrection.
Chris, anything?
My feeling is we've already witnessed the end of America as we have known it in the past. It was a terrible debate on Thursday for Joe Biden. I cannot lie or say, he did well. However, I will say that I'm not going to base my decision and anything that I do in the election based on a 90-minute debate. Okay? I'm looking at the things that this guy has done over the past 3 years. The reduction, as he said, in the our grandparents or relatives that are on insulin, and the reduction in the insulin costs, the infrastructure bill, being able to put people to work, the different things like that is what I look at. I look at our kids and being able to maybe start school, or not start school, but to leave school and not have the debts that they had because of what he's done. Those are the things that I'm looking at, and that's why I'm not going to let one bad 90-minute debate be how I choose who I'm going to elect for president.
And Joe could have sincerely been sick. Well, I don't know, but he could have really been sick. And the other thing now, the debate facilitators, I wish they had dug deep into the Project 2025 report,
right,
and really question Trump on certain entries into that in that
they didn't even
document.
talk about the infrastructure,
and we got that coming up next week. Right,
Project 2025.
We're talking about Project 2025 next week, so you make sure you tune in. Project 2025. If you don't know what it is, look it up. Get ready for next week's show. But as far as what we're talking about today, a lot of times when you have campaigns, people move in between. They'll move in between government. They'll leave government to run the campaign, and after the campaign, they'll go move back into government.
right?
What worried me most is the people that he has around him, because they did him an enormous disservice,
You talking about Biden?
even allowing this debate to happen.
Yeah.
And the reason I say this is because he's the incumbent president, and all the news cycles that were surrounding Trump. Think about every time Trump was in the news, it was about one of his court cases. It was about his conviction. It was about his court cases. It was about the lawsuit, the amount of money. Why would you push that out of the news cycle? And why would you give him a platform that would allow him to be seen as presidential, or the equivalent of a president? You know what I'm saying? Why would you give him that platform?
I've told you what I thought.
Joe needs everybody around him in his campaign needs to be fired.
Right.
Trump
said he never fired nobody.
He needs to fire somebody right now. Whoever allowed this debate to happen needs to be fired, because they one, you let Trump continue to be his own worst enemy. You keep him in the campaign. You keep him talking crap about the system. You let him keep talking about crap about the judges. You keep letting the Supreme Court make these horrible decisions. Why don't push that out and do something? Joe should have been doing nothing, nowhere near the debate stage. The only thing he should have been doing was meeting with world leaders. That would have been the contrast.
I think the one thing that everybody thought is this type of format, turning off the mic, no audience, and was going to be beneficial to Joe, especially.
No.
Joe is better with audiences and being able to have some people there, and to be able to have the interaction.
Yeah. I honestly, Chris, I would have had Joe. I would have just had Joe taking pictures with world leaders. every week he'd be sitting up there with a different world leader and contrast him doing the job, world leader. I would have set up a summit where we're going to talk an inflation summit. What's the biggest concern on people's mind right now is inflation.
It was just so funny,
I would have
man.
put an inflation summit.
Trump said if I gave him 10 questions, he probably got to the first.
Yeah, you asked about
But in contrast, Trump was asked questions that he refused to answer.
He didn't even answer. He didn't answer child care, and it was a couple other questions that he didn't answer. But again, I wouldn't even give him the opportunity.
Trump is a con artist.
Yeah, but let him be portrayed. Right now, in everybody's mind, he was a convict. Trump was a convict. He'd been convicted 34 counts. Why give him the chance to show that he's
One
president?
thing they probably should have said, Biden should have said, is, hey, you probably asked your probation officer.
I'm telling you, man. I would have. Hey, man, look. Hey, you can't even fly to the country.
You know what was a great scene though was when Biden was getting on him about being a whiner, and if you look at how he was kind of like this. I'm in trouble. I'm in trouble. I mean, that was a great contrast to where Biden stepped up and was popping him on the hand, and you can see this little boy appearance about him.
And then right after that, Biden turned his head and he had his mouth wide open. So, my God, there's no way anybody with any sense would have allowed that debate to happen.
Okay, GL, we need you to do some wifey magic on him.
Yeah, man, she need to bring in Kamala. You know what? We need you to upgrade Joe. Whatever you need. We need the black wife effect on Joe, whatever it is. But I tell you what, though, the statistics that came out said 60% of Democrats want him replaced from the top of the ticket.
Ain't gonna happen.
Ain't gonna happen.
Ain't gonna
He
happen.
ain't gonna step down.
No.
And nobody's gonna talk to him about stepping down, or
Oh, I think they probably already have talked to
Talking
him
about stepping
about it.
down?
But see, first of all, it's a very complicated situation. First of all, this debate is probably going to cause some people not to vote for him because they're afraid that he could even die in office, and they're going to end up with Kamala.
that's my
A lot of people don't want Kamala. Okay, so before you can even talk about trying to replace Joe, the first thing to me is that you got to ask Kamala to be able to resign. Okay. Then once you ask Kamala to resign, even if you had everybody's bringing up the name of Gavin Newsom.
Right.
If you brought up the name Gavin Newsom, he would or could be your vice presidential candidate, which I think would assure or help some people really with the vote of Joe Biden.
Well, I think that could be, but I think that people were talking about putting Gavin at the head of the ticket, and not.
But Joe has to step down for that as
Joe
well.
has to step down. Gavin at the top of the ticket, but you have this push. You have this chatter amongst the uncommitted delegates. What is like 600 some uncommitted delegates or something like that. So you have the uncommitted delegates saying, "Hey, we're gonna vote how we want to vote," right? So that's an issue. If those delegates can get to choose who they want to choose, and they start organizing around the Newsom Harris ticket and bring over delegates that are supposed to be committed who become uncommitted, you have a problem with the convention.
But now what I don't know is that based on what you're saying, okay, if you've got 600 uncommitted, you've got however many Biden has won through the primaries. So how many committed does he have?
Right.
And how many of those have to
Switch.
and I don't even know if they can switch or whatever. So it's complicated.
And then you've got a lot of Republicans and independents that I will never put a felon in the White House.
Right.
You do have that.
So we got a lot of those folks out there floating around as well.
Right.
Now, in terms of using Gavin Newsom as a possible presidential candidate and appealing to black people, that might be questionable. Okay, especially since California set aside $12 million for reparations for foundational Black Americans. So how many black folks are in California?
I don't know, but everybody get about $1.
Yeah,
That's a lot of them.
So $1. That's a slap in the face.
Yeah, but
Hey, dollar's better than nothing.
yeah, I mean, it is. It's a complicated situation, and it became more complicated after the debate. There is ageism involved, unfortunately, but I mean, it's just you have to take that in consideration when you are in charge of the most powerful nuclear arsenal in the history of the world. You're in charge of the most powerful country in the history of the world, and you know, you have to be lucid, and you have to be able to make strategic decisions. You have to be able to understand not only long term, but you have to, in order to plan long term, you have to be able to remember, saying yesterday, you know what I mean? And so, if dementia's a hell of a thing, and if Joe is even have any stages of that, it really incapacitates his ability to function.
I don't think he has any stages of that.
Man, I saw Joe lose his train of thought a couple of times, and he started off talking about one thing and ended up finishing up talking about something else. Man.
I don't know what he's talking.
Yeah, did nobody know what he was talking about?
Maybe that was a strategy. This to confuse Trump. And then finally, you guys gonna carry my golf bag? I just want to know, since they were talking about carrying golf bag.
Oh my God.
We've said a lot today,
Yes.
and we really want to thank everybody who listening in to Hot Topics. And again, we also want to say thank you again to our producers, Carl Booker and Linnell Taylor, for showing their dedication to keep this show on YouTube. And with that being said, as we like to say, this is Contemporary Black Voices, where we tell our story our way.
We gotta say Happy 4th of July. You didn't wish him a Happy 4th of July.
Oh, happy 4th of July.
Project 2025. Next